Welcome to Bourke, eh? It's always a good opportunity to come and showcase how strong our culture is with our kids today. Thanks, Brother Joe. Thanks, brother. Sister Sue and the team for allowing us this opportunity today to share some song and dance with you guys. And I guess the fact today's purpose is coming out to promote pathways to education for our young people is important. And I just want to thank you guys for doing that. Thanks, Melbourne University. And thanks for everyone for being here today that's going to go back and create these opportunities for our young people. So today, this is our little dance group, Murawarri dance group. We perform at numerous events for numerous occasions. But once again, it's a pleasure to be here. So I just want to say welcome, Yamaguru Maingolka, welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Bourke. Hope you guys enjoy your stay. Have a good night and take away as much information you can and create as many opportunities as you can for our young people. So thank you. So our first song, this is our welcome song. This song is it represents different styles of shake legs that's been shared with us from Uncle Paulie Gordon and Uncle Peter Williams. So I just want to make mention to a couple of brothers from Dinner One's Connection, Mark Merritt, Chrissy Jones and Ty Gordon, who have allowed us the opportunity to continue this dance. So this one represents a different style of shake legs. Put your hands up if you've been to Mount Gundungurra. So you'll see on the artwork different styles of shake legs. That's what this song represents. So the different styles, but also at the end, you'll see all our dancers coming together in unity. And that's what culture is about, bringing people together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Return to Country Oration. I'm Jordan Carter. I'm a Ngarrindjeri Ngemba man, and I'll be your MC for the night. I'm also the Indigenous Engagement Coordinator for the University of Melbourne, Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here, the Ngemba people. I'd like to pay my respect to elders both past, present and emerging. I'd also like to thank a special thank you to Uncle James Mahr for the Welcome to Country that we just had, and to thank the talented performers that share their culture with us today. It's truly an honour to have you join us here today. And I'd like to welcome our esteemed guests, and a special note to our special guest, Uncle James Mahr, Auntie Josie Vera and Auntie Josie and Vera Bino, Murawarri elders, and Frank Viteri, our Acting Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology, as well as the Faculty Executive Director Claire Hooper, and the Honorary Mark Colton, MP. While running this program, the Return to Country, I've had a lot of time to reflect on my own educational journey, and it's been an inspiring week as it has, but it's made me reflect on the time that I spent during my VCE times, and how impactful a program such as this, where when delivered in an area where they don't have so much exposure to science, technology, engineering and maths, and I can really see the impact on the students' faces as we go from school to school, and it's a great thing to see. And now I'm delighted to introduce our first guest speaker, the Honorary Mark Colton MP to the stage. Mark was first elected to the House of Representatives for the seat of Parkes, New South Wales in 2007. Since been re-elected in 2010, 13, 16 and 19 and 22. Mark has also served on numerous parliamentary committees since entering the federal parliament in 2007. Would you please welcome Mark Colton to the stage?
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me here, and welcome everyone. And also, I acknowledge that I'm on Ngemba land, and I really enjoyed the welcome to country. They were very, very good. I was really pleased when I was invited to take part in this tonight because I'm of the firm belief that education is the cornerstone that pretty well deals with every problem as a society. It offers opportunity and stability, and having every child having access to education is so important. And from time to time, I run into young people. They're just about finished school and they have aspirations that they want to do something, but they can't quite get there because they haven't got the building blocks in their early days of education, and they end up being quite frustrated because they clearly have the ability to take that career path, they have the desire, but they just have those gaps. And one of the challenges, I think, as parents and carers, and I even recall back to when our children were smaller, they've been adults for quite some time now, but it's very hard to advise your children on a career path or what they might need academically, because the evolution of technology and the workplace, there's jobs now that people of my generation wouldn't have even thought of younger days, and a couple of my adult children now are doing jobs that I wouldn't have even considered talking about to them because I have no concept of how that works. And so I think the concept of bringing STEM to the country kids up here in the north is a great one because it hopefully will encourage them to further their interest in those subjects, so that when they get a bit older, it gives them opportunities. It gives them the benefit of being able to choose. And when I talk to school groups, I talk about my own. I had a very clear career path from when I was about 5. I was always going to be a farmer, and I did quite well at agriculture and science and geography. But why would I need English? And now, for the last 17 years, I've had a job that requires me to be able to express myself in either written word or spoken word. I wish now I had taken a bit more notice when I was at school to my English teacher. So giving our young people a broad education so that they've got options when they get older is so important. So congratulations to the university. It's been great to meet some of you and chat tonight. And I look forward to the results and the influence that you have, and I've already promised the principals of Angonia and Murawarri they're going to get a visit soon, because that's one of the highlights of my job is visiting the schools and catch up with the kids. So enjoy the night. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mark, for that insightful address. Very inspiring and thought-provoking words. I'd like to introduce our next speakers, Auntie Josie and Vera Bino from the Murawarri Elders. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Vera, my sister Josie. I'll probably be the main speaker for us both because she forgets things, and we went through a big list of things, got point everything down before we came, but now that's all gone, flew out the
We left it at home.
left it at home. Yeah, but what we were going to talk about here was our school days in, like, our living days in Gundungurra when we were young, going to school in Gundungurra. So do you want to start off? Yeah, well, what we had written this morning on our little dot points about our, not lack of education, but lack of, well, I always say that my days were like in poverty days and lack of financial things and I'm not trying to sound over dramatic here regarding mums, going back to our way of life, but we lived in the dumps, and education for us was good in Gundungurra. But we didn't get to our full potential in Gundungurra because of there was racism, and I don't want to use the word, but that was in our school back in the days in Gundungurra. And, us being the colour we are and coming from low family background sort of thing, we were ridiculed and, and we didn't get to express our full potential in educational things in Gundungurra. Like, we were good at sport. We used to have PS3O sports once every 2 or 3 months. The team goes to Walgett, a team of us used to travel to Walgett. My sister always wanted to beat the fastest runner, but she couldn't. But sports and what we did learn, that led us on to bigger and better things. Like our life in Gundungurra was good. It was good, just with being with the family, and education brought us a long way. From Gundungurra we moved out to Ilmaringal then, out to our aunties out there and aunties and uncles, and that's where we also learnt to express ourselves more culturally. We were full on with culture out in Ilmaringal. We used to live it and breathe it every day with our aunties and uncles, and the being there led to job positions for us. Well, it started off with babysitting for the station owners around there, and that led on to work on the properties. Well, my sister always talked about her first job was out on a property just about 2 or 3 miles out of Wheel, and
just doing housework.
And tell them your first pay.
What
What you got in her first pay?
What did I get?
Oh, 2 and 6.
2 and 6.
She treasured
The
that.
hard work, but you get used to it in the end, and the station owner, they were very, very kind to us and helped us along our way. Yeah, and I enjoyed working on the station, But not on the station. We'd go out and have a day out and come back home to Wheel. Yeah, in those days,
Yeah. But that's out at Wheel, that's where we learnt most of culture stuff.
Yeah.
But we both, worked our way up. I don't know how.
You were the first.
Worked our way up to be teachers' aides.
Yeah.
First teachers' aid
Vera was
recognised
the first teacher's aid in New
recognised
South
in New
Wales,
South
Aboriginal
Wales.
teacher's aid in New South Wales.
and also also Josie ended up being a teacher's aide too at school.
Yeah.
We did our block trainings down in Sydney and down
Sydney
in
Union.
Sydney down there, and that that led on to our children. We got to, we sort of look at our children now, our younger generation coming on with our families. They've got all the opportunities in the world going for them now, and at our school out at Wayilwan, there's only about 7 or 8 primary school kids, and we've got
There's 20 altogether, isn't it?
No, they're only that little group there in Wayilwan. We've got a couple of high school kids, but the bus comes out from out from Murawarri, pick them up of a morning and bring them home of an afternoon. A couple of high school kids, but our 7 little primary kids there, they're into like computers now. They're not there writing with pens and papers now. It's all this computer stuff now, and sometimes we'll go up to them and have days up there, like with do our culture talk with them. And try to put a bit of culture into the school. Pardon me. And there was a bloke from one of our elders from Lightning Rig. He used to come out every so often, and also teach them language and not so much dance. Pardon me, not so much dancing like the kids did out here, but mainly the language. And just to see our kids do that, following culture. I don't know. Where that'll lead them later. It's probably it'll be up to our little individual, whatever they want to do. But just being in a little school, they get all that learning, more so than we got back when we were kids. And later on they'll probably grow up to be whatever.
Yeah, well, we both went to Sydney Uni, and we did our training down in Sydney Uni, and I was after you, and yes, and that led us on to, being there for our younger children, our younger ones, showing them respect and all that, and showing them that they can do just as well as we did. Yeah. Yes. Encouragement for them too, yeah.
Yeah, and nowadays in the schools, there's not so much of this, like, racism. I don't like using the word, sorry, but, there's not so much of that nowadays in our schools, and if, like the teachers back home, if they see any of that being displayed in our school, we'll abolish straight away. And things like that. So they've got more opportunities to grow up and learn more better.
Yeah.
You got any more to say?
So after Vera finished hers, their teaching at Wayilwan, then I sort of took over. And sort of did the sort of same thing, being there for them, caring for them, sharing, and learning, helping them learn too. Yeah, being there for their support. Yeah.
And like even now, so when we come to town, like down to Bourke here, pardon me, the families that moved away with their families, with their kids now, they're up in their like their 30s, 40s, and they'll still come to us and, oh, Auntie Jo, you taught me at school, still recognise it that way.
Yeah.
So
they've been to school,
yeah. You were my teacher at school, so that's a sort of a credit for us, and it's a pride, for us to be recognised like that,
by the other children,
And we're the only elders. We've got to go another brother-in-law, but we're the only elders back home in Murawarri, and we're respected by our kids, our little kids. Everything, auntie and uncle, they come to us for everything, babysitting, whatever. And we're
Yeah, we did a lot of babysitting.
We've got 2 little boys home at the moment with us, and we're flat out chasing them around. They knock us up. Yeah, so I haven't got much else to say. What have you got?
No,
Much?
I haven't got much to say either.
Yeah, but you know, just it's just you know, you can see. We can look back now on our years and our days, and you know, we're proud. We're proud to be standing here in front of a crowd of people. These are the people we were.
Yeah.
You know, it's the people we were brought up with, and you know, up to be like, and we're proud to be. You know.
Yeah, because I just want to say that growing up down, because we lived at Gundungurra down the reserve, and you know, I was scared of white people. Yeah, because you know we'd hide our face and all that, but you know, when we grew up, then they're the same as us. You know, we accept them as they are. Yeah. So that was good, and that's just growing up. The big difference between living down in an Aboriginal community and then mixing with the whites uptown. Yeah, it was difficult in those days, but now it's no deal at all.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We forgot to welcome us for the country, Ngemba people. Yeah, we forgot to acknowledge the Ngemba people that, you know, that we were. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Arnies, for sharing your story and your wisdom with us. Your perspective's invaluable. Right before we introduce our next guest speaker, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, Telstra, that has allowed us to get our student mentors and allow them to share their knowledge and experiences back with their own mob. And it's my privilege to introduce the next speaker, Tully Mahr, a Gundungurra woman, and she is currently studying her Masters of Mechanical Engineering. And she's recently returned from the US after doing a NASA internship at their Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She's passionate about her STEM engagement in Richmond. Welcome, Tully.
Good evening, everyone. So firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge Ngemba people. The land in which we meet today is owned by them. And I want to pay my respects to the people here today, the Ngemba people, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today, the elders past, present and future. So it's truly an honour to be here with you today, sharing a little piece of my journey in the world of STEM. So as John introduced me, my name is Tully. I'm a Gundungurra woman and I'm currently studying my Master of Mechanical Engineering with a specialisation in aerospace at the University of Melbourne. So while my current focus is on engineering, my educational journey didn't originally follow this trajectory. I actually completed my undergraduate studies in science at the Australian National University in Canberra, majoring in mathematics and minoring in physics and chemistry. At the end of my degree, I was faced with a decision of what did I want to do in my career and the rest of my life. When I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut. As I grew older, societal judgments led me to downsize my ambitious aspirations. That was crazy. No one older than 10 wants to be an astronaut. It wasn't until recently that I decided that no dream is too grand and to boldly disregard those that insist otherwise. So I chose to rekindle my passion for space exploration, and this led me to studying my current degree at the University of Melbourne in aerospace engineering. This decision changed my life. So, as John mentioned, I recently completed an internship at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, through a program known as the National Indigenous Space Academy, which is run out of Monash University's Faculty of IT and is funded by the Australian Space Agency. This program is specifically designed for tertiary students studying in STEM from an Indigenous background to go to NASA. So my time at JPL was transformative. From a young age, I've always been captivated by the mysteries of the universe and the possibilities that space exploration holds. NASA, as a pioneering force in space research and technology, has consistently fueled my passion for pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. Astronaut has always been and will continue to be my dream job. But if I weren't to be an astronaut, I would become a part of NASA's mission. I would become a part of a lifelong dream to push the boundaries of human achievement in the vast expanse of space. While I was at JPL, I had the opportunity to interact with many brilliant minds and meet some of the world's greatest scientists and engineers. I was able to engage in conversations, gain insight into their work, and learn from their wealth of knowledge. It was a privilege to be surrounded by such a talented and innovative community. But if there is one thing I took away from this internship at NASA, it was their slogan, "Dare mighty things together." So what does this mean to me? It means fostering an environment where diverse minds converge, pooling their collective brilliance to overcome the most formidable challenges, propelling humanity to new frontiers. To me, the Return to Country program embodies this slogan. The program dares to bridge the gap for Indigenous Australians to pursue a career in STEM. It strives to foster mighty ambition within our people, and it does this by working together. In reality, it takes more than one individual, more than one university, and more than one community to create a paradigm shift. It requires us to work together to effect positive change within the Indigenous community. Together, we can create a safe space to foster innovation and creativity. Together, our diversity enriches the STEM community. Without the support from the University of Melbourne, the National Indigenous Space Academy, and all of the individuals who have helped and inspired me along the way, I would not be in the position to stand up here today and share with you the key message that has absolutely changed my life. To make a positive impact in society, we must dare mighty things together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tully, for that truly inspiring story. And now I'd like to introduce Susan Beetson, proud Ngemba woman, born and raised in Brewarrina, grew up going to Brewarrina Central. She currently is a computer science researcher at the University of Queensland in the Human-Centred Computing School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science.
Yamagara, everybody. Welcome, thank you. I want to also acknowledge our Ngemba peoples, the Murawarri peoples, and all of the neighbouring nations who've had a long association with these lands. I grew up in Brewarrina. My father's an Ngemba man, and my mother's an Irish woman. And I went to Brewarrina Central. And the fish traps were something that we weren't allowed to access initially until after the 67 referendum. And that's when we got a house at Newtown. So we got to actually live on the outskirts of Brewarrina. And those fish traps, after some time, my dad, we moved to another house just on the edge of town, but inside the levee bank, which was pretty good. Uptown Blacks, I think, was the term used. But what that allowed my dad to do was go to the fish traps every morning, or most mornings, and get us a yellow belly and bring it home, and Mum would cook it for breakfast. Yeah, it was pretty good. But that's my, when I woke up yesterday morning at my cousin's house in Bree, actually when I got to, Coolibah, Dad calls it, so I just call it Coolibah. When I got onto the Bree and Coolibah Road, I got to Gundungurra and I drove down the road to see all my old people, where they're all buried. And And then I drove by the house that I spent a lot of my childhood, my grandfather's house, my father, where he grew up, on the Bogan there, right, number 1, Bogan Street, I think it is. So yes, I really am a Bogan, from the Bogan River. But I then drove to Bree, and just seeing the red dirt, I stopped in the middle of the road, looked in the rearview mirror, nothing that way, nothing forward, stopped and lined the camera up and took in the original days, that was all red dirt roads. And today it's got beautiful bitumen all the way, but you could still see the vibrancy of the red, which just fills my heart and makes me think of my father and my grandfather and all my old people. So it was really lovely to arrive in Bree and stay at my cousin's house. So yeah, that's. I want to say thank you to Auntie Josie and Auntie Vera for your lovely acknowledgement and hearing your story. It's beautiful, and I've really enjoyed being here with Joe and the team at the schools, yesterday at Bourke and today at Bree Central, and just seeing the eyes of the students when they connect. You know, I know that they really connected when I got to share that I grew up here too. And for me, I was walking at 9 months of age, and my dad was a shearer, and I was walking 2 steps behind him from that age until I was almost 6, when I was at school. And my mum had another child to look after, and so I was the one marching along. He'd grab me, pick me up, throw me over the brown snakes, and I'd keep going. But I learnt about so much in that time, from 9 months to 6, about country. Dad always wanted a boy, and I think he saw me as his firstborn was the boy, and his secondborn was not a boy either. But third one came along, and he got the boy he wanted and dumped me. But I was a little lady then. All of a sudden, I had to become a grown-up girl. But what happened in that time was I learned about the layers in country. I learned about understanding the minutiae, the temperature under the leaves at the base of the tree. I learnt about so much in terms of layering and storying. My dad could tell a yarn like, and he used to tell me I'd do the same, but, he blamed me on my aunties. But, just telling story. And now, in computer science, that's what we do. We tell story. Whatever it is that we do when we create things, we want to make sure that the story is retold in the way that it was meant to be told, in the way that it interacts with contemporary voices today, and to ensure that all voices come through that story. What I know about mathematics was really from my dad. He helped me to understand patterns in country. He helped me to understand why the bees nest on one side of the tree, not the other, why you cut, trees at a particular temperature of the day, where you take the witchetty grubs from, all kinds of things that today, actually when I got to 6th class, they took me out of my class, and I was no different to anybody else, other than I got to spend so much time with my dad during the day. When he'd go shearing, I'd be there with him and all the other men in the shearing sheds as a little girl, on the wool bales, not being shorn, but then just walking country the rest of the time. I was there on his hip when I was too small, but I was right there. He'd throw me in the river. I was swimming, floating at, whatever age. But that was a privilege for me, because a lot of our children don't have that today. And they don't have that connection necessarily, but they do have it. It's in their DNA. And they have Brother Bradley Steadman goes around to the schools. Auntie Josie and Auntie Vera were there before him all those times at Wheel. So we know that these children have been connected, maybe not in the way that I was, but they have those connections to storying, to patterns, to, they call it, rather than linear stories, it's actually, rhizome storying, where you actually build story and you create story from, exactly, thank you. So it's really important that when you see children, when you're teaching children, that you're actually connecting with what they already know. I really struggled then when I went to uni. I actually, in sixth class, they pulled me out, put me with 4 non-Indigenous boys, and I had to do computer programming, and I loved it. I did the calculations, I punched the holes in the cards, I put it into the machine, and it worked. And I knew that it was great. I really loved it. But I actually learnt that at Murawarri Central. So we had computers in those days. We were doing it in those days. They actually have some great stuff happening in their schools today. But there's better stuff that can be happening. But for me, then we relocated, and Mum thought we'd have better education opportunities elsewhere. So we moved. I think it was because Dad, there was other things with racism, and I hate the word, but there were situations, people call it coincidence, but it was actually reality. So we relocated, and then I never finished school. I did go on to TAFE and do secretarial, but that was the deal I made with Mum. And then I kind of didn't really focus on a career at all. And then I was working as a supervisor of word processing teams, if anyone knows what that is. It's like a typist pool. And showing my age, sorry. Yes. Then a woman actually took me by the scruff of the neck and said, "You can do this," as she was implementing local area networks into the law firm I was working for. And so I started, because I'd already been using scripting language and then some programming language to automate things, and that's why she noticed me. And so I was just, no training at all, and then went on to move into help desk, database design, database development, network engineer, ICT management, and at 40 I went to university for the first time. And that's when I did that because my boss thought I was from the wrong side of the tracks. So I wanted to spend $5 million of his money, and he couldn't understand IT, and he threw the report at me and winded me, and I decided I didn't have the tools to articulate why I needed to spend his money. So I went to university and I graduated with honours, first class, straight 7s. So I knew getting to uni was really tough. They told me that I wouldn't get into what I needed to get into, that I didn't have the ability, I didn't have the experience, but I did. I got into my first preference, and I got to do what I wanted, which was a combination of computer science and information technology and information systems. And I now have submitted my PhD in IS theory, information systems theory. So it was a long journey. My PhD has taken me just on 14 years, and you're only allowed 10. And what I'm trying to do is say that we need to make these exceptions for people. We need to see, when you see the big wide open eyes of people, young children, adults, you need to actually see those eyes and know that you're connecting with them. You need to be able to find the things that they actually really relate to. I take in students like we do here, and because my family are Beetsons, we do boxing, we used to do boxing, we used to do football, so I know all of that, so I can connect with the boys. I know about the dance, I know about culture, I know about all of those sorts of things, so I really try to connect with students no matter where they come from, who they are. I teach them how to teach the machine, and it's just a really simple platform, how to teach the machine, how to do all the different boxing punches, uppercuts, left hook, straight rights, all of those, and football kicks and dance moves, and even sign language, you know, how to actually use cultural sign, because my dad and I would go fishing for so long, and we grunted each other or, you know, use language without speaking, and we'd have fed each other and caught lots of fish, and there was barely a word spoken, and be like 6 hours on the water. So there is so much culture that sits within people, and so much of that actually relates to what we're teaching in computer science, and especially in relationships with people, where to go. I'm just making sure I'm not getting a wind up here. I forgot that I had notes. So really, you know, how to actually engage students, and what we need to be doing is in schools and getting children to get to university is to understand that it is a long road. So they need to know that they can get there, and to help them stay with it. I think, you know, if there's anything that I can ask you to take away is to look at those wide eyes, to encourage children to actually stay with it and get a degree. But they might actually leave at a time. They might not be meant for university, but they might leave and come back. And like I said, when you start a university degree at 40, and I'm now in my 60s, I won't say how old, and I'm just getting a PhD. So that's my third IT degree. So I think, you know, it's pretty important that we, whatever your journey, whether you start as, you know, a young 18-year-old or you leave it for a while and find yourself in that position, it's actually was what my dad taught me. It was my 6th class teacher that actually got me to understand that I could actually be there.
Thank you, soon-to-be Dr. Beetson. Thank you for that, sharing your experiences and your story. And I'd like to say a personal thanks for your help in delivering the Return to Country program. It's been a great experience working with you so far. I think it's also great to see a lot of these big universities making a real commitment to sparking the conversations with Indigenous engagement in STEM. Before we get to our next speaker, we're going to have a short 10-minute break. For all the guests here, please feel free to grab some more food at the buffet. Hi everyone, welcome back, and welcome back to our online viewers. I'd like to introduce the keynote address. Thanks for that, Joe. I'd like to introduce Dr. Joe West. Dr. West is a Murawarri engineer from the Gundungurra region in regional New South Wales. He was born and raised in Bourke. Dr. Joe West served 21 years full-time in the Army, the Australian Army. He's seen active service in Afghanistan and East Timor. He still serves as a reservist, taking his total years of serving to 32 years. He's completed his Bachelor of Electrical Engineering and Bachelor of Computer Sciences at the University of New South Wales, receiving first class honours in engineering and an award for the highest grade in computer science. Here's his Masters and Masters of Engineering Science and Doctor of Philosophy for his research into artificial intelligence. Dr. West is the inaugural Associate Dean Indigenous of the Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology.
Thank you very much, Jordan. Before I start, I'd particularly like to acknowledge the Ngemba people for their gracious welcome and for letting us here today. I believe before white people came here, we used to fight a lot over fish, over partners and all sorts of things. So, I'm here as an ally today, not to take anything that you didn't give me permission to do. So I'd just let you know that. I'd like to further acknowledge my Murawarri elders that are here, Auntie Josie's and Vera. Thank you very much. What an amazing job. That strong women like them, providing strong leadership for our mob, maintaining our connection to our ancestors. I want to acknowledge the Honourable Mark Coulton for travelling from Dubbo, so thank you. We're definitely aligned. There's so much talent and potential in regional Australia, and I think that there's a lot of work to be done in helping unlock that. People shouldn't have the aptitude and not the opportunity. I think that is a very clear message. Finally, I'd like to recognise the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and IT, Professor Frank Viteri, and the Faculty Executive Director, Claire Hooper. And I'd like to personally acknowledge the efforts and the support from the faculty, which has underwritten and enabled this initiative. So thank you. And finally, thank you, Tully and Susan. Amazing experiences. Gives you chills about, the efforts and works that they've done. And I think Suze agrees, our job here is to make sure that other Indigenous engineers don't have to have this strange convoluted path in order to get to their end goal. Our job here is to try and make it much more seamless and more direct. I'm very proud to return to Bourke as the keynote speaker for the inaugural Return to Country Oration. My country, the Murawarri Nation, starts a short way from here, north of the Bourke Bridge, and stretches across to the north of Brewarrina, then extending north into Queensland towards Cunnamulla. Murawarri means to fall with a fighting club in your hand, and it's customary to recognise those that went before you. And in doing so, I'd like to read you a poem. And this is about someone who I hold in very high regard. I'll provide a language warning though, because it does contain a racial slur, but I think it's important to read the poem as it's written. The poem is called The Coloured Digger by Sapabert Barros. He came and joined the colours when the war god's anvil rang. He took up modern weapons to replace his boomerang. He waited for no call-up, he didn't need a push. He came from the stations and the townships of the bush. He helped when help was wanting, just because he wasn't deaf. He is the right amongst the columns of the fighting AIF. He is always there when wanted, with his Owen gun or Bren. He is in the forward area, the place where men are men. He proved he's still a warrior, in action not afraid. He faced the blasting red-hot fire from mortar and grenade. He didn't mind when food was low or we were getting thin. He didn't growl or worry, he cheered us with his grin. He'd heard us talk democracy, they'd preach it to his face, yet knows that in the federal house there's no one of his race. He feels we push his kinsmen out where cities do not reach, and Parliament has yet to hear the Abo's maiden speech. One day he'll leave the army, then join the League he shall, and he hopes will give a better deal to the Aboriginal. That poem was written by Sapper Bourke during World War II, and it's about a fallen Aboriginal soldier, Private Harold West. He was my pop's brother, a Murawarri warrior who was born just outside Wilmaringal in a place called Denowin, which means emu, just north of Bree and a short drive from here. His feats of bravery on the Kokoda Trail were absolutely legendary, so much so that there were newspaper articles written about him here in Australia. But his feats were overlooked. And the poem, while revealing racial undertones, speaks volumes not merely of the valour in the face of adversity, but it underscores a much more profound truth. The resilience, the ingenuity and the undeterred spirit of an Indigenous warrior, providing a focal point for the nation's recognition, but shining a light on the pervasiveness of a true systematic disparity. Indigenous soldiers throughout World War I and II served gallantly, with the Army treating them largely as equals with their non-Indigenous counterparts. But while Australia was happy to accept their service and sacrifice, it wasn't ready to let them fully participate in Australia's decisions. This poem, The Coloured Digger, urges us to reflect on whether we continue to perpetuate a similar dichotomy today. In this, the first return to country oration, we're considering how to enable a future for Indigenous Australians in engineering and information technology. But the lesson from this poem is clear. It's not enough to merely value and appreciate Indigenous knowledges. We must ensure Indigenous peoples are empowered as key decision makers and leaders, shaping our future of our communities and the broader society. It's no secret that those in key leadership and decision-making positions require at least a bachelor's degree within Australia. And this is very unlikely to change anytime soon. And this unwritten rule acts as a gatekeeper, creating an impassable barrier for those that don't have standard attributes or come from remote rural communities, especially Indigenous students, effectively saying that you're welcome in the workforce, but you can't be the leader of it. And systematically, we have this situation in STEM. More than a decade ago, the 2011 work titled Indigenous Australian Students' Participation Rates in Higher Education identified Indigenous participation in STEM as a critically urgent issue. And unfortunately, it seems that not much has changed. Recent numbers provide a stark reality for engineering and information technology, with only 0.5% of the Indigenous population having engineering degrees, compared to 5.2% of the non-Indigenous population. This was reported by the Science and Technology Australia in the 2020 Australia STEM Workforce Report. Despite a growing awareness and appreciation of Indigenous culture, the challenges have proven beyond the reach of goodwill so far. They point to continuing issues that enable an entrance for a group who match the existing cohort and continued perpetuation of the barriers for those that do not. The prevailing view and strategies are changing within many universities, and through initiatives such as alternative access pathways, scholarships and other initiatives. For instance, the Victorian Indigenous Engineering Winter School, or VIEWS, is now offered by 4 Victorian universities to Year 10, 11 and 12 Indigenous students from across Australia, with transport and accommodation provided for those travelling to Melbourne to participate. The 5-day program is expanding participants' perspectives on engineering and information technology and opening up their eyes to exciting new career possibilities. The program has been so successful that VIEWS alumni are now part of the university's mentoring leadership program. However, more needs to be done. Universities are all competing for a very small pool of Indigenous academic talent. That is, those people who are already succeeding at high school. So many initiatives aim to make a particular institution the preferred choice for Indigenous Australians. And while these initiatives are really important, they assume that the journey from community to amazing Year 12 results is a level playing field when it's not. And I think the conversations that have been borne out today demonstrate that. So I propose a paradigm shift where we focus on building and nurturing a pipeline of Indigenous engineering interest Unless we build and fill this pipeline, universities and industries will be forever competing for that very same small pool of people. Every stage in the pipeline to becoming an engineer or an engineering professional is nearly empty for every Indigenous Australian, including the very first one. That is the desire for young Indigenous students to want to become engineers. And universities have an important role to enabling the spark of interest of young Indigenous students to pursue engineering. Indigenous ingenuity has all the hallmarks of that modern engineers strive for, including community-centric solutions, personal and task-specific modifications, evolutionary and agile development, and sustainable material pipelines. There is much to learn from enabling Indigenous engineering perspectives in universities, both as examples of early engineering and for engineers to understand how to design a system that can stand the test of time. Bamy's Nunu is a large structure located in Brewarrina in regional New South Wales on the lands of the Ngemba people. These fish traps were a central part of the cultural practice in this region and are thousands of years old. These traps were a focal point of multiple communities, creating a central place to share knowledges and resources and provide sustainable food sources for thousands of years. A similarly important structure exists on the lands of the Gundungurra in southwestern Victoria, called Budgebim. Budgebim is now a World Heritage Site and is another ancient aquaculture and food generation system, predominantly for eels. Indigenous weapons, shields, and tools were tailor-made, fit for purpose and sustainably produced. They considered aerodynamic principles and understanding of stresses and tensile strengths, equally as robust as professional engineering knowledge today. And the list goes on. Engineers stand to benefit greatly from embracing and understanding these methods. But if we succeed and make Indigenous engineering a part of the modern engineering curriculum, without improving the number of Indigenous people in engineering, then we are accepting a continued division. The 2012 review of higher education access and outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, led by Larissa Bernholt, recommended that universities build strong relationships with schools and work closely with them to encourage Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander retention, academic achievement, Year 12 completion, and transition to university by the following: increasing efforts to build student skill in key areas like maths and science, academic achievement, and aspiration to go to university. Beginning at least with Year 7, or the earlier the better, through outreach activities and intensive support in the form of case management, mentoring, outreach, and academic enrichment programs. But resources still need to be put towards building family and community support for higher education, building peer networks that support academic participation, and ensuring that students have all the information they need about higher education through mentoring and guidance regarding things like the importance of school, subject selection grades, and what to expect in terms of classes and load. Also, the provision of financial support to ensure that talent and not finances are the key success drivers. And finally, improving teacher quality and support and education by ensuring that teachers graduate with qualifications, training, cultural competence, and also enabled the knowledges of pathways into universities. None of these recommendations are surprising, and I think you probably all agree that most of them will likely work. However, I think their simplicity hides a true complexity. Our national system does not reward universities for these efforts. So universities have had to operate off goodwill. The Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology at the University of Melbourne, sending a boy from Bourke back to talk to schools in his hometown is almost certainly not going to generate new Indigenous enrolments for our faculty anytime soon. We are a graduate faculty, which means that in order to get to our faculty, you already need to have a bachelor's degree before you apply to us. So if we inspire someone today, it would be 5 to 10 years before we actually see them in our faculty. Our systems of grants and funding do not allow this longitudinal approach. It requires a broader systemic change where funding models and institutional rewards align to enable long-term investment to genuinely diversify our academic communities. It implies a need to change the ways that we measure success, moving beyond immediate return and adding more value to deeper impact and outreach and engagement. Indigenous communities, I know, are tired of transactional approaches where large institutions fly in for a short project, do great work and then leave. The community adapts to the project, and then as the project ends, it creates an economic and opportunity vacuum. But 5 to 10 years in Indigenous world is a very short period of time when you consider that Indigenous peoples have seen multiple ice ages in this country. In my experience, Indigenous peoples do want to partner with large organisations and create more opportunities and realise the benefits of modern technology. But they want to be truly a partner, not just an adjacent participant. So what do we do next? Well, we need to work together to make this happen. Universities, high schools, government and industry. I think we know enough about the problems and the challenges of Indigenous people accessing higher education. I also think we already have a robust set of recommendations of what we should do. So what's next is that we should just get it done. So I'd like to invite all interested parties to reach out and join this dialogue so that we can now transition from understanding the issue to addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. West, for that fantastic keynote address. I'd now like to welcome our esteemed panel members to the stage. For our online viewers, feel free to pose any questions in the chat. We will have a facilitated Q&A session. I'd like to re-invite Tully Mahr back to the stage, as well as Susan Beetson. Also, Auntie Josie and Vera Bino. And I'd like to invite Sean Graham, the principal of Brewarrina Central School, and Murray Cronin, the principal of Bourke High.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, much of us have had a chance to speak, but our two principals haven't yet. So I'd first just like to provide them a few minutes, and I'd love to hear about their journey into academia and how they came here to be principals of these schools. And I'd also, I'd like to just give them the chance to talk about anything they would like at this forum at this point, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Sure. Questions on Murray? Thank you. So my journey out here was actually not too far away from Melbourne University. So I was living in Melbourne, and it was post-COVID, looking for a change, and there was an opportunity to be a head teacher in Bourke, and I really have always wanted to return to community position, which I've previously had, but more importantly, a community with a high percentage of Aboriginal students. So I've been principal for nearly 12 months, and the invitation for Melbourne Uni to come to our school actually came from an ex-colleague, Joni. So we're really fortunate to have her reach out and give us the opportunity to have Melbourne Uni come into our school. I suppose there's been a few themes that have really resonated with me tonight, and first and foremost, it's having Aboriginal people working with children, and I think that what I've seen in Bourke is that the most powerful learning has been that. There's lots of teachers here, but sometimes it can be someone who's not a teacher that teaches some of the most important things. And I think we've heard a few of those examples of that today. And connecting what kids are learning to what they know and love. And that's a really significant thing to think about with how we're going to engage more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students into STEM. For me, you absolutely have to connect it to what they know and love and what's local, what connects to their lives. And the challenge for people like myself is first and foremost knowing those students and what they love. And then finally, something that's really resonated with me, you talked about big organisations and pipelines. And our school's been working really hard in some other pathway areas to engage with big organisations because we want to be the source of that pipeline. You know, big employers are looking for people and we have them. And when you've got people such as the university that are coming to us saying, we want to support your kids to come to us, that's, you know, you're not going to say no to that. But I think what would be really interesting is to get potential employers involved as well, because we've heard people talk about knowledge gaps and some of the pathways to the end of year 12 are different for everyone. And I do think that there should be opportunities for people to enter uni without necessarily even finishing year 12, because there's, you know, personal qualities, intellectual qualities, social qualities, emotional qualities, and that can be assessed, for want of a better word, in so many ways. And the thought of, you know, someone like NASA, we've heard about identifying a student in year 10 or 11 and saying, we will employ you and we'll put you through uni, is, I think, the third arm of this that would be really interesting to explore, that almost like an apprenticeship model where the employer supports them through and they do their learning along the way. So thank you for having me here tonight, and I'll pass it on so I don't take up too much more time.
Thank you. Amazing.
Made that really hard for me, Murray. I don't know where to start. I guess going back to Joe's questions, my journey to tertiary education started from a small country town where I shared this story today. When I left school, either I left my town or I pretty much got a job in the hat factory that was in town, because that's where my family were embedded in the factory, and I chose to leave town. And I guess the conversations I'm having and my thoughts about what kids in Murawarri and in rural and remote areas, what opportunities they've got to move on. I had a similar thing. My small country town had no universities around it at all, and no opportunities like that. And it takes you to be brave enough to get off country to go and do those things or better yourself or improve your education. It takes a lot of bravery to come off country, and I mentioned that today as well. I think the biggest challenge for a lot of our kids is breaking the cycle and moving off country, but still having your analogy of a pipeline to come back and forth and still feel accepted here in their community and also feel accepted in the off-country area where they're working and living. And your experiences have shown, particularly yours, Susan, has shown that you can do that and it is possible. It was difficult in my situation, obviously, way back when. I'm nearly 50 now, so back then there was a larger disconnection. Here I feel, well, in today's society, I feel that connection is the gap is closing. Technology is really going to make a difference for our kids going to university, I think, and already does. I guess what led me to Bree, going back to your questions, what led me to Murawarri was a story. I have a substantive position as a primary school principal in the Hunter Valley. My family is all set up in the Hunter Valley. I didn't need to leave or do anything other than what I was doing, but I'd heard a story that Murawarri had, now I'm going to get emotional, six principals in 6 terms that were relieving in the position, and I just felt these kids deserved a little bit better than that. So, I took the chance and took the opportunity. And in making the decision, I think it was all based around my childhood growing up in a small country town with a high Aboriginal population, and all of my friends that I went to school with were all Aboriginal kids, and just being white gave me more of an opportunity than it did for them, which was really sad, because I just expected all of us, my friends, to just be able to leave town and get an opportunity, and I guess they didn't have that. And I was attracted to Bree because I wanted to make that difference. Now, I'll be quick, my connections with universities in the past have been mainly through University of Newcastle and working in the Hunter Valley as both an assistant principal and a principal in schools where I've been able to build on connections with the University of Newcastle through a program called Careers Through Reading. And we were targeting kids in Year 2, all kids, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal kids, in Year 2 up until Year 6, and influencing them around careers from university. So undergraduates would come out with a set of books related to their field and their faculty. They would read to the kids and talk about their experiences, and those children took so much away from those experiences that I feel we could do something like that with, University of Melbourne in this case, where it's a regular, and whether it is through the use of technology as opposed to coming on country, where it's a regular connection with our kids about opportunities and desires for going to university or being involved in that pathway, and the different faculties and different choices you can make at university. I think that's
amazing.
probably
Thank
enough.
So I'm going to run the forum slightly different. So what we'll do is Tully's got the mic, so I'd invite someone to ask Tully a question.
Australia is just has a burgeoning or starting space program. Mm-hmm. Do you see, when you've completed your education, that you'll have opportunities in Australia to advance your career in the space industry?
This is a great question, and this is actually something I have been considering recently. And I recently had a conversation with a mentor at NASA. I've stayed in touch with them since my internship, and the conversation I was having with her was about the opportunities for space in Australia and the space industry within Australia. And as you mentioned, it's quite small, particularly comparatively to the US. And so at the moment, the opportunity to pursue a career in the space industry is internationally. And the conversation I was having with my mentor about this came from this idea that there needs to be an initiative through the Australian Space Industry or Space Agency to create opportunities, just as I did with my internship, to go overseas and learn those skills and bring that knowledge back to help promote the space industry in Australia. So as for myself, I would love to stay in Australia to pursue my career in space. I definitely want to work in space. Realistically, that does depend on whether the opportunity is there or not. And I'm a huge advocate for Australia promoting that space industry and that space exploration. And I think realistically, this ties well actually into my thoughts around community and the same idea that with Indigenous students, you have, the opportunity doesn't exist in these rural communities at the moment. And the opportunity is in the urban areas. So in order to gain these, better educational pathways, they have to leave country to go to an urban area and gain these opportunities. And ideally you want the opportunities to be back in the country as well. And so that they can go to the cities to get their education and then have the opportunity to go back to their countries where that opportunity still exists. So great question. I feel like it actually ties really well, my thoughts and my opinions around creating opportunities within rural communities for Indigenous students it ties really well into my thoughts and opinions on Australia and the space industry.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a question for Suze? For nearly Dr. Suze? I have a question. I'd love to know a bit more about UQ, Suze, and I'd certainly like to also acknowledge, UQ's commitment and support to send you here.
Thank you.
What is it that drew you to UQ, and how are you enjoying your postdoc, which you've already commenced?
Yeah, I was working for Charles Sturt remotely, and then I thought at the time that I was going to be soon submitting my thesis, which took 4 years longer, 4 or 5 years longer. And so I sent my resume out to a number of local universities and regional, and I got an email that said I missed out on one of the positions that I applied for, but because I'd sent my resume as well, just sort of generally, with a cover letter asking to meet people, I got a call to meet the head of school, and so I went for a coffee, and the next minute I had a job. So I spilt the coffee all over the table. The last little bit of the coffee with my hands waving as I was talking away. But I'm absolutely loving it. Our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Bronwyn Fredericks, has made huge inroads into a sandstone university, which comes with a lot of historical baggage, and unfortunately there hadn't been a lot of inroads into our faculty, the Faculty of Engineering, Architecture and Information Technology. I'm the only full-time Aboriginal academic, and our other only Aboriginal academic alongside me is part-time. And so there are just 2 of us, and I think we have one support staff person in the faculty. And I thought that I would be able to create an Indigenous research hub. And what I realised was that the University of Queensland in our faculty had not focused on rural and remote Aboriginal Queensland, Northern New South Wales, or anywhere in relation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students within our faculty. So my endeavours in the last 4 years being there has been to I created a response to the RAP, to the UQ Reconciliation Action Plan, and looked at how we might consider creating a pipeline for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students to get to university, to actually look at getting an undergrad and then postgrad and then potentially a PhD. So it's actually taken me some years to get to that point where we've just employed within the faculty an outreach officer beyond the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander unit, and the Deputy Vice-Chancellor have their outreach programs, but I wanted to have someone in the faculty that would not only support any of our students that actually come to the faculty, she would also go out to schools as well. She was actually going to come on this trip. Joe invited her as well. Well, I asked if I wasn't overreaching, but unfortunately it's the first week and she's kind of like already auntie to all of her new students. So, and we did have a much better intake this year, which was really great. And I hope that soon, in the near future, we'll have a Associate Dean Indigenous as well, but I think it will be a little bit slower in Queensland. But I'm I have our head of school, my supervisor, and our head of school, and now our new executive dean of the faculty is absolutely amazing, and they're really supportive of not only grounding all of our curricula into in Indigenous perspectives and methodologies and knowledges, but also bringing our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, bringing graduates into the world. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, but I need to spend more time on research. Really,
Thank you.
there needs to be more of us.
Yeah.
To the free athletic and baby sister at the Middle East, we just talk. So then if you was talking about things, you're trying to build a capacity around the original people in regards to university and getting to the places of degree and whatever else is like that. So what is the starting point in regards to teaching our young people about that space? What is the most important part about that individual? I'll use one with Burley next to me, come to this with me. What would you teach her first about who she is? What she wants to be? Obviously, that'll be the first week. Does she want to know what does she want to be? But what is the critical part about that young child or that young gentleman or that young lady that's going to go to the university to be a doctor? What would you teach them first? What would be the first thing that you'd want to teach them?
Uncle Phil, I would say belief. Yeah, certainly. A number of other things you must factor in, I guess, and one would be teaching them rigour and teaching them work ethic for life in general, not just going to university.
All right. Anybody else?
I know you're passionate about the environment, and for me, the answer is teaching them to think about the why, The degree is the what and the how, but they could solve local problems, systemic problems, national problems, if they've got this tool to make significant change. And to me, yeah, it starts with maybe looking at a local issue and how could building our knowledge and understanding capacity in STEM help us to solve this problem, because it's really important for us and people in the past, people in the future. That would be, the why.
I definitely feel like I can add on to that. I was very privileged to be raised to always believe in myself and to not set any limitations on myself. And shout out to my parents who are, I'm pretty sure, watching the live stream, so for always supporting me in that. And I think it's really important that you always encourage your children to know their worth, to be raised with strong morals, strong values, and to just actually pursue a passion. I don't think the question of what do you want to be is as useful as who do you want to be, and going from there and what are you interested in and pursuing that. And then always encouraging that belief. For me, I want to be an astronaut. Cool, you can be an astronaut. Yeah, like it's not you can't do that. Like, you might not get there. There definitely were those societal pressures, but I think being raised in such a way that I could be whoever I wanted to be. I had the belief of everyone around me that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And so that for me has taken me to where I am, and I still have that internal belief that I am capable of anything that I put my mind to.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said. But I didn't grow up with that privilege. I didn't grow up believing in myself. I got first class honours and thought that they just gave it to me. I didn't understand why I got straight sevens. And that's been a part of the reason why it's taken me 14 years to do my my PhD. And so it's really important for me to, when I talk to children, to believe in themselves and to dream and for parents to allow their children to dream. My dad wanted me to, he wanted to buy a little shop in the main street of Brie and me to be a hairdresser so I could do mum and auntie's hairs, you know. That was his big dream. But
Really helpful in Green, right?
yeah, it would actually. I wanted to get my hair cut and there was no one there. She was there last week. So, you know, I just want children to be able to dream and for parents to believe that dreams can happen. And I know that's really hard for a lot of Aboriginal people who grow up Aboriginal. And so, yeah, that's my...
You sort of edged on my thoughts. I think the first thing for me is identity. To know who you are, where you come from, where your community, where your family is. I think that's the critical part for a young child. I think belonging is where do you belong in that? What is your lingo? Where did you come from? I'm from Murawarri too, so I heard some of the Murawarri yarn there. So knowing that, knowing about the language that you're supposed to speak, you know, your Ngemba, Bourke, whatever it is, knowing that, that gives you an identity there.
Yeah.
Because I can't take Ngemba to Japan and speaking it there because it doesn't belong with us, it belongs to the country. And so having that belonging was the second part. That is probably the last part from where you stand on purpose with what you saw Bourke about, having a diversity line. And we already have that as black folks, as Aboriginal people, we don't own it. That's our truth, that is to be responsible for something like that. And that's not even big to any of this training for whatever we call them in schools. Who are you? Where you come from? And then what is your purpose? So that are the three things that I think about.
Yeah. Well, respect, responsibility, all of those things. But I, you know, grew up, I was taken to Sydney, you know, to hospital with bad kidneys and, you know, things like that. And so, you know, like it was, you know, a pretty tough time. But my cousin was, you know, meant to swim. He was sent to Sydney to swim against an Olympian. I can't remember his name, but Dad, if he was here, would be able to tell you. You know, and he would swim 5 miles of butterfly every morning and he could beat this Olympian, and he should have actually stayed in Sydney according to everybody because he would have actually been an Olympian himself. But he couldn't. And Dad was a selector of football, or not a selector, but he was the scout in community for Uncle there. And so he used to put names in and kids would go to Sydney, but there was no, you know, there just was never that a sense of place in the big cities. We actually create a sense of place in you know, a sense of community and a sense of place within these Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander units, student services. Trisha's you know, works in that space as well. And I know that happens in most of the universities now. And I wanted to get, you know, a person who was really connected to the youth and really wanted the children to, and could speak to them like an auntie. And that's, you know, really important. I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to have that true sense of identity. And, you know, now I talk to children about connecting culture to these other things. That is so important. Once they know who they are culturally, then they can see that in the concepts that we teach in technology. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. So I'd like to ask Arnie's a question. So this will be the last question. But, you know, given your experiences, Arnie, at school, you know, you going off to university, you know, leaving country, you know, going to a big city. I'd love you to sort of just give us your views on, you know, some of the things that we spoke about tonight. You know, how things have changed already and how you would like to see them change in the near future as to close out our panel.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, to start off, like, as we got older and ready for high school and things like that, even with the when we told Mum that we were picked to go to the thing down in Sydney with for the teachers' aid thing.
Yep.
Well, she cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, you know. Tears, she just wouldn't, that connection, she couldn't break that with us. And that made, speaking from my own experience, that made me didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave home and all this and that. But I got to realise then that there is a time that I have to take that step forward, which I did. And it was back with with the little fella named Alan Duncan back then. Some of them might have still remember that name. Back in, we used to go to Mackey Building down in Sydney. That's where we did our block trainings down there. That's why I did my block trainings down in Mackey Building. Just a fortnight away from being home. That was it was heartbreaking, first off, but, a big culture shock for me. And, I soon found out that and learned. That's where all my, mixing with society, I have to get out of this rut that I am in back home. I came to realise that. I was sort of sensible enough to realise that, and I ended up going through for the full 5 or 6 years of the training with the teachers' aid training, and I achieved what I started out to achieve anyway. But no, with me talking now still about our kids back home at school, back where our younger generation back home, the family generation kids, they're still in the same rut that we were in years ago. They're still like our younger kids. They still want to follow their examples of their parents, want to be shearers, want to be rousers and working in the shed and all that. And, that's not a life for our younger generation nowadays. And the kids, there's no one there to sort of encourage them to, as I said, get out of that rut and into the wide open world. Maybe their parents tell them, maybe, but it's another boot on the wrong foot or whatever. They're not listening. But you just have to have the gumption to up and break that cycle, and then you'll.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you're right. You're in the wide open world, and you achieve everything. You achieve your goals.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Arnie.
Well, I was the shyest kid going. I didn't want to get away from Wilmaringle at all. And I didn't want to do anything. And Vera went to uni in Sydney, and but I worked at the Wilmaringle school just doing the duties, just the cleaning duties. And pardon me. Vera went to Sydney and did her training, and she came back. I worked at the Wilmaringle school for about nearly 20 years, just cleaning. And I reckon I was the dumbest kid in the class in Gundungurra. Yeah, and I didn't want to take any part in education. And but I was there to support my sister Vera, and somehow or another, in the end, I ended up going to Sydney Uni. It's good to make people laugh, isn't it? So I did my 3 years in blocks at Sydney Uni, and I worked at Wilmeringal School for, 21 years? 21 years as a teacher's assistant. And that sort of took all my shyness away from me. Now I'm sort of a big noter now. Yeah, so you could ask me to do anything and I'll do it. I'm the leader, or I take myself as a leader now.
Ask her to do the impossible, she'll still achieve it.
Yeah, I like doing things and I like helping children. And I worked at Wilmeringal School for 21 years. Yeah, for that 21 years there. Yeah.
At the moment, she's you're rearing a little 10-year-old boy. Oh, not little, he's a whopper. But she's rearing a 10-year-old boy, and, you know, she gives him a lot of support, and we all gather around him and help her with
Spoil
him,
him,
sort of thing.
yeah.
So we're still good kids around us.
Yeah, we still got the kids around us, yeah. But I was very scared to go to school. I went to school, didn't I, in Gundungurra?
Scared to go to Sydney.
I was scared to go to Sydney. Yes. And all the others used to go out. They said, "You coming out?" No, Josie stayed in their room. I was too scared to do anything, yeah. But in the end, there was 3 blocks, 3 years of blocks, eh? 3 blocks, yes. Yeah. So in the end, I made friends and I'd go down. It was compulsory, really, if I wanted the job at the school. And I really liked the job at the school, so working there. And so I did my training, and I worked at the school for 21 years.
Yes. Yeah, I'm proud of that.
So a big round of applause for the panel, please.
Just want to say another thank you to all our panel guest speakers that have been here today. Thank you. It's been truly inspiring listening to all your powerful messages and what we all can be doing for the future. I'd like to introduce our next and final speaker for the night, Professor Frank Viteri, the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and IT at University of Melbourne.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Joe, and thank you all. I've been given the privilege of saying a few words to close off the evening. It's been a great evening. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting here on the traditional and unceded lands of the Ngemba Wayilwan people, and I acknowledge also the traditional owners of all the lands of all the people who join us online. I pay my respect to the elders, the ancestors, and all the wonderful Indigenous Aboriginal people here with us this evening. My name is Frank Viteri. I'm the Acting Dean in the Faculty of Engineering and IT. Normally I'm a Deputy Dean, so I'm standing up because our Dean's busy at the moment. And it's really a pleasure to be here with my colleagues from the University of Melbourne and other universities to undertake this activity and this conversation with you. We've thanked our speakers, but I just want to go over a little bit about the wonderful speakers and the contributions they've made. And Mark, thank you for opening tonight and just reflecting on the importance of education, and particularly not knowing when you're young what you're going to need when you're old, and being in a supportive environment where you need to think that through. That was an important truth for all of us. So thank you, Mark. Auntie Josie and Auntie Vera, what a wonderful stories you gave us all, and such heartfelt, beautiful. I was imagining those times. I can only imagine what they were like, and you were able to paint them in a way that there was both such happiness and you made us laugh. It's lovely to make us laugh, but also such sadness too, and you're able to take us back to those times. And you did very much come up and achieve exactly what you wanted to achieve. And it was just a wonderful source of inspiration for all of us. So thank you. And continuing that, Tully, where's Tully?
Space engineer.
Yeah, wow. We're all going to be astronauts, Tully. And just the importance of dreaming. And you said dreaming together. And I think it really is dreaming together and continuing that inspiration and the motivation and belief in ourselves. And I think that's such a powerful source of inspiration to all of us and certainly to the young people of the area. Susie, great meeting you for the first time here. You talked about the importance of stories and patterns. And I'm also was a maths teacher, and I know that mathematics is just patterns. Yeah, and it took me a long time to understand that mathematics is patterns. And I'd not seen the connections to patterns and land in the way that you described it. So thank you. It was a lovely story. And the connection from that journey to land and culture and family to science. It's really valuable. So I think it was a lovely reflection. Thank you, Susie. Sean and Graham, you reflected on the importance of schools and your commitment to your children and your students. So thank you for that too. And our inaugural oration from Joe. And Joe, in his lovely, polite but strong way, has put up a challenge for us to think differently, and to think differently about the way universities engage with Indigenous communities, and moving from more transactional, short-term encounters to something that's a bit more enduring, a bit more profound, a bit more consequential, and something that will address some of the injustices that we've all come to understand this evening. So thank you, Joe. And part of the journey tonight is to respond to some of the challenges you've raised for us. Thank you, Joe. So, yeah. We also have we have sponsorship from Telstra, and that's very important too, because these events like these don't happen without support. And I just acknowledge Telstra for their support for the Return to Country program. That does help us ensure that we have our staff and students and programs come to speak to classes here and connect. So thanks to Telstra for their support. I also want to particularly thank you all for coming tonight too, because this doesn't happen with just me talking to myself. We all need you. So thank you for being part of this conversation. So this is the beginning of a conversation. We're really looking forward to continuing this conversation over time. That's not going to happen just in one event, and it's not even 1 or 2 years. It will continue, and we're really wanting it to continue. A key motivator of the Return to Country program is the view, the understanding that you can't be what you can't see. And it was really important that, it's very important. And I love my job, and I have the privilege of seeing wonderful Indigenous role models like Joe and Tully and other students around my university. And I enjoy it very much. But that privilege should not just be for me, it should be for the communities that they come from. And it's really important for me that connection is maintained with the communities from where they've drawn their inspiration, their hope, and the part that's brought them to where they are. So part of the Return to Country program is very much that reconnecting our wonderful Indigenous leaders in our universities with the communities that have helped to nurture them. As we reflect on some of these powerful stories that we've heard tonight, we're reminded of the role of education in our lives. and the transformative journey it represents. I know for me personally, education has completely transformed my life. And this is important narrative. It brings to light the resilience that we've heard, the determination, enduring spirit that defines their path to education. So the stories and the narratives echo the sentiment that education is not merely a means to acquiring knowledge, but a gateway to empowerment, to personal growth and to fulfilment. And we're helping to unlock that through this program. Yeah, I think it's a great thing too. Also, it's come up again, and I just want to iterate it, and it came up some earlier conversation about the importance that education is not just about work that I do and work that my colleagues do, but the role of principals, parents, elders, community leaders, mentors, and the whole support network play in that transformative journey. So we have people from all those here tonight. So that's a really powerful part of that conversation. So Joe has challenged us to take some actions, and that's beholden on all of us to think through exactly how we're going to respond. I just like to plug a small but important action that's happening at our university, at the University of Melbourne. We recently launched the NAM Scholarship Program. We're very proud of this program, and it guarantees places to eligible Indigenous students, offering them financial enrichment support to Indigenous students. We recently made offers to 36 students in December, and we hope that this will start to change the balance in the conversation. Naam is the Woiwurrung word for Melbourne, where we come from. It means place, and it signifies our commitment to being a place where Indigenous students feel safe and respected, where they feel belonging, as we heard earlier, and where they can participate fully in university life. I'm very much looking forward to this ongoing conversation, to engaging with my colleagues across the university sector for future iterations of the Return to Country program. Today is a really poignant reminder that education is not just for degrees and certificates, but it's empowering individuals to shape their destinies and contribute to all of society. I'd like to invite you all, the whole university sector, Indigenous leaders and all organisations to come together as we strive to create an inclusive, empowering education environment. Together, we break down barriers. We all enjoy the benefits. We all enjoy the benefits of diversity, and ensure that every student, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to strive and succeed. Thank you all for coming, and have a great night. Still continue for your drinks.